different facets in 5G. 5G, known as the data G, opens the door for positive development in many use cases to make the world connect like never before. First up, we have a joint presentation by our friends here at Microsoft. Speakers include Sean Hockel, Vice President of 5G Strategies at Microsoft. He owns the entire portfolio on the engineering side at Microsoft for Azure for operators. And that's no small task. We also have Deepak Garg, who's the general manager of Azure for operators, and he's specifically responsible for mobile packet core offerings. So with that, I'd like to invite both Sean and Deepak up to the stage. Welcome.
Awesome. In case you're wondering what the division of responsibility is, I do the hand wavy stuff and Deepak talks about real technology. So being the VP of 5G strategy at Microsoft, I think often get asked, why does Microsoft even care about 5G? And to be very straightforward, we view sort of the 5G and the partnership between the operators and the hyperscalers as being incredibly important in terms of how the entire cloud experience is delivered. In fact, we're seeing with the vast distribution of ISVs, developers, and partners out there, a tremendous amount of growth in the edge ecosystem. And ultimately, what we see a widely distributed compute fabric spanning from 5G up into orbital that is servicing the needs of enterprises, governments, and individual consumers globally. Sorry, I make fun of PowerPoint. Okay, there we go. Now, obviously, there's been a lot of talk, I think, about private MEC and the deployment of private networks centered around edge compute. I actually think the possibilities here go much broader. When you think about that, essentially, when you put the network on top of, all right, we got a, you essentially put a set of distributed or ubiquitous compute resources on top of the network. You have the ability to create specialized services and utilize the unique capability and intelligence embedded in the network to create the next generation of solution. So you have the ability to place compute, networking, and storage wherever you need it, to be able to link it up securely and ubiquitously with a common platform that extends across that regardless of deployment, and then to be able to build the next generation of experiences on top of that, whether it's bringing the power of AI or ML into the real world, whether it's building the next generation of communication and reality experiences, or whether or not it's just being able to access raw compute power where you need it and when you need it. We see that transforming industries in terms of not just the deployment of private networks and the next generation Industry 4.0 solutions, but the ability to bring things like AI into contact with the real world, to do things like fraud detection real time. You see the ability to bring network APIs and release the analytics, the telemetry, and the capabilities out of the network to the programming community so they can build services on top of that. And that's where we think this next generation of monetization opportunity comes for the operators, and really that new application topology that's going to drive the way communications move forward. What I will say as we look at that, as people seek to build out on those monetization opportunities, as Lisa mentioned in her opening speech about the fact that 5G is the data network, or the future of that is really a lot of enterprise and business-oriented services. For the different operators that are out there, and I've worked with many around the world that are building stuff, there are some common themes as they're looking at deploying their networks. First thing is the ability to build a composable network, integrating both telco and cloud together. This is the option of having that ubiquitous cloud platform, the ability to deploy software elements using common DevSecOps techniques, coupled with orchestration to drive the automation so that you're taking the people cost of monitoring and managing that out of the cost. And in the end, that's built on composable software block, cloud-native network functions. In order to engage the innovation ecosystem, rather than building from sort of your traditional pile of suppliers in this space, you want to pull in the broader developer ecosystem globally. And that's all about exposing the network APIs, the work we've done with Kamara and the Open GSMA Gateway project, to be able to expose the value of a differentiated network to the people creating the application, so the investments you make in network matter. And then finally, we believe that the power of AI ops, the use of AI-powered operations, is going to give that customer experience the ability to customize and operate at scale really the power to deliver that next generation experience, both from the consumer side as well as your ability to operate those services. So those are the building blocks necessary to do that. Now I'm going to turn it to Deepak to talk through some of the scenarios we're working with different operators around the world as they look to harness the combination of the next generation of cloud solutions along with the next generation of communication services.
Thanks, Sean. So as Sean talked about, the next generation of the networks need to be built through different composable services. Now, that's what we have done at Microsoft. What we've done is Microsoft that, okay, operators really need a new way of reducing their CapEx, OpEx, but also come out with a new monetizable solution. So the platform that we built is really taking into account all the cloud native, all the containers, all the partner ecosystem that we have. And with this, with our interactions with all the operators in the world, we have been able to come out with so many different kind of scenarios where we're addressing it. Things like right now, a lot of times operators struggling with agility. CapEx, OpEx aside, how do you get into the new use cases? International expansion. You're already present in one country, how do you expand? So is there a way that you can act as an MA in a different country and solve those? Similarly, when you want to talk about, say, dead zone, there's so many places where you talk about IoT trucking industry, you're not able to kind of find their coverage holes. Can you fill that with satellite coverage? With event of like great satellites. So now we converge our overall solution portfolio, even with Microsoft orbital assets to make that happen. Things like if we talk about network as a service, every time talk about when operators are doing it, they always try to go about monolithic individual elements, some core gateway, some voice, some infrastructure. Do it right? Can you just offer that entire as a service? It can be used for labs, it can be used for different facets of kind of things. Same thing if you talk about basically API gateway. Now the enterprise are kind of merging it. You need to somehow be able to find where the location is, give it to the application. Same thing, if you want to change some policy for some subscriber, you can make that happen. So the point is that we have been getting a lot of inputs from a lot of these operators and translate some of these inputs into really solutions which are much more agile, much more faster, much more at the end, reducing the TCO and making these monetizable things. Give some example that we want to talk about effectively, even in, let's just talk about a fixed wireless solution. The fixed wireless access solution is not at all same as, even though the same elements are involved, nothing like consumer network. On a consumer network, typically you will have 120, 140, 150 kilobits per second per subscriber. The fixed wireless are looking at somewhere like 5 meg, sometimes 10 meg, sometimes 14 meg, sometimes 15 meg per second. So how do you really make it happen? So while one can use an existing consumer network, can you really think about an overlay network completely, which is separate from the consumer network, which is really focused on not mobility, low subscribers, but very high throughput. And how do you come out with it? So what Microsoft has come out is a complete solution, which can really offer this complete solution at a very extreme user plane efficiency. Microsoft is leaders in performance and signaling and throughput. So essentially, we can offer these solutions at the end of the day, providing a whole high throughput extensible solution, but also provide areas where regional coverage is not present. One interesting area we always feel very good about is the 5G SA has not taken off. Facts being sold, yes, 5G coverage has increased, a lot of penetration for 5G, but the SA coverage is still leaving much to be desired in the industry. But this is where a whole lot of new use cases can enable, especially on the enterprise side. This is where we see meet the enterprise where they need it, whether they need it at the local side, which is really at the enterprise prime for low latency, for data privacy, for some of those kind of things, or you provided the far end side or at the near end side. It depends on the use cases, but make it separate from the consumer, come out with a different code, come out with a different infrastructure, and make it happen so that it can be realized at a different pace of innovation than the consumer network. So this enables new monetization avenues, but it's also modernized, much agile. It can be easily introduced, fail fast, and you can make it happen. I turn to Sean of the complete values.
Yeah, so again, super important thing here is most of these ideas aren't new. They're things that have been around before. The magic with a lot of this technology is not in the new ideas. It's in harnessing the innovation that's occurred outside the telecom industry, as well as within the mobile operators, to bring together something that's much more implementable in terms of both cost perspective. You're not deploying yet another new box. You're not deploying yet another new vendor stack. You're deploying an integrated software element that sits within an existing framework using a cloud platform that can leverage the cost across multiple industries and leverage best practices for security, resiliency, and access from multiple industries. You put that together with the ability to start to build smaller software-based solutions that can be specialized around particular applications. As many of you know, when I ran a B2B business for years, the need of the B2B business is quite different from that from the consumer side, much more specialized, much more robust, but smaller net deployment. You couldn't do that with traditional techniques. Using the combination of AI ops together with software-based services makes it much more practical to build those services on top of the high-grade consumer network that are deployed today. And we've actually done the research with our friends at Analysys Mason, as well as other organizations, to demonstrate the value of the use of those cloud solutions. The use of a hyperscaler-based cloud versus the more traditional, what I'll call DIY or build it yourself cloud technology, is overall about 1/3 cheaper. And a big chunk of that is driven by almost 60%, 55% plus growth and efficiency in the OpEx dollars associated with solutions, eliminated through standardization, pre-certification, and automation to drive a significantly better outcome as well as a cheaper total TCO. I would encourage you again from a security perspective, as you're looking at distributing more software-based solutions on a broader basis, to leverage and harness the zero trust techniques that work effectively in the cloud industry and have proven themselves over and over again in that respect. Microsoft itself is the most cloud compliant solution out there today, with more compliance certifications than anyone else in the space. In addition, we have a large developer ecosystem, a large partner ecosystem, the largest in the globe, that we can harness by working together to expose the value of a differentiated network to that developer community. We can build that next generation innovation, and it's an opportunity to monetize the investment people have made in their 5G network. And then finally, from our perspective, we have deep telco DNA. We acquired that through the purchase of some leading cloud native network function providers, coupled with an innovative relationship with one of the tier 1 operators in the United States. We run tens of millions of subs, driving telco workloads on our platform today. So this technology is not if it could be done, when it can be done, it's being done today at scale, and it has significant advantages, and we hope you'll join us in advantage of that. With that done, I will turn it over. Thank you very much.
Next, I would like to introduce Mike Fitz. He is the Vice President for Solution Sales at T-Mobile. His team consists of technical sales folks that cover 5G solutions, fixed wireless, private networks, edge, IoT, collaboration, and security. I've had the privilege of working with his team pretty regularly, and I will tell you that they are absolutely fantastic. I've also come to find out that Mike is from Northern Virginia and probably a close neighbor, so I'm sure he's going to be fantastic also. So welcome, Mike.
Very good. Thank you, Lisa. All right. Yeah, so I'm Mike Fitz, Vice President of Solution Sales. As Lisa said, it's great to be here, and hope you guys are all having a good show so far. Look, I've been in this industry for 30 years myself, in telecom and networking in some form. And I will tell you, I've probably never seen a time like we have now to redefine how the world connects, which is the theme of this session. And we can do that through 5G. And you say, well, okay, what's so radically different now? Well, I tell you, the opportunity in front of us here is for the first time ever to unite the way we connect, whether we connect thinking of our employees, our customers, even ourselves in that context, whether we're connecting mobily when we're on the road like we are all now, whether we're at home or whether we're in our place of work, be it an office, a hospital, a factory, a retail store, whatever it may be. The opportunity to unite how we connect to a single technology, which is 5G, is potentially a game changer. I mean, first of all, think about how we all connect today. I don't know about you guys, but I left for here yesterday, and I would guess that for most of us, we've probably connected to our network for corporate access. I would guess through like 4 or 5 different ways, right? You left your house where you had broadband connectivity at home. You drove to the airport. Of course, you had 5G probably there. On the way, you had airport Wi-Fi. You had hotel Wi-Fi since you've been here. You might have Wi-Fi right now. That's 5, right? Already we talked about. So, while as an industry, we've done a good job of abstracting away that network complexity to allow applications to run ubiquitously, the opportunity in front of us here is to now use 5G, change the paradigm, and connect everyone ubiquitously to 5G, whether you're mobile, home, or in the office, and bring that unity of the network to drive a whole new level of performance. And you might say, hey, you know what, Mike, this sounds good. It makes sense. Certainly the mobile side makes sense for 5G. Maybe you can see your way to 5G at home. I don't know if any of you have 5G for your home internet just yet, but if you don't, and maybe you've been reading articles and you've read in the last 5 quarters in a row, one of the wireless carriers has dominated the broadband industry. And in fact, we've actually installed more broadband than the cable companies AT&T and Verizon combined for every quarter for 5 quarters in a row. So if you've read those articles, maybe you realize, hey, I can see my way to 5G at home for business use. But what about this office environment? I mean, we're pretty well set with our Wi-Fi and our WAN that we've had in place forever, and it's worked for a long time. And I think that is the biggest opportunity for change right now. That is going to drive the unification of network connectivity to 5G. And again, if you say to yourself, well, wait a minute, Wi-Fi's work pretty well. And, we're using it today. So why 5G? Why would 5G displace the LAN technology with Ethernet and Wi-Fi we've used forever? And I'll tell you, first of all, I would look at it this way. The environment that we operate today in our offices that we're all using is not an elegant set of technologies by any stretch, right? There was nobody, I assure you, on this stage, a stage like this 40 years ago, has said, guys, I have a great idea. To connect our offices, we're going to have fundamentally 2 technologies, a WAN technology that's going to do backhaul and provide you one level of protocol and performance in SLAs, and a completely different LAN technology that provides its own set of protocols and performance in SLAs. And of course, these bifurcated networks have to be bridged together with routers, and we're going to supply all the devices with switches and access points, which have to be wired too. It's not elegant. Okay, but it's what we have, and it's how we've evolved our networks, and it's worked, and it's served us well for a long time. But a much better solution today is 5G in your offices. Okay, direct connection of your laptops, your tablets, your phones, whether that's direct connections to the public network or through a private network connection. So rather than talk about it, let me show you what this looks like in action. And it starts here. So let's all remember, at the end of the day, why are we in the network business? We're not here to sell, network is a means to an end, right? I mean, we're here really to deliver applications to our end users. That's what we do in IT and the telecom in the networking world, right? We deliver applications. Network is a means to an end. I always have to remind myself of that, even though I'm very proud of the business we're in. So we're all here to deliver applications. That's the number one job of a CIO, and most of you in here. And those applications reside on network connected devices, of course. That's our job to connect them. And those network connected devices consume their content, their applications, somewhere out in the cloud. Right? Pretty simple model. You guys with me so far? I think this is pretty straightforward. And that content, as we know, sits out in data centers, public, private data centers, services like Azure. We just heard from the Microsoft guys. The challenge we have, though, here is, while this page may look pretty simple, the reality is between those network connected devices and the content they consume, there's a lot of white space or black space, as it may be on this particular slide. And connecting those is the challenge for all of us in the networking business, right? And so back to the 3 fundamental ways I see us connecting. Let me lay it out in this format. Number 1, how do our users connect? The first way, mobilely. Okay, this one's pretty straightforward, and I think we get this one. We at T-Mobile, just like AT&T and Verizon, have been doing a pretty good job of this for a long time. I think we know how to do this. We have 110 million connected users on our network who directly connect mobilely. This one, I think we can all get our head around how this works and what that model looks like. The second way we all connect in our life, because look, at the end of the day, we're all employees and customers of somebody, right? The second way we connect is when we're at home. And we at T-Mobile, just like the other guys, have a pretty good fixed 5G product we're very proud of, and we can enable that as well, enable home usage. In fact, we have a lot of customers right now who are keeping their consumer broadband internet for, kids and PlayStation consumption and all that. We have a lot of customers say, look, I'm working at home, I'm a call center agent, but when my kids come home after school, the consumption of their traffic and their Xbox or PlayStation is causing me issues on my Genesis call center app, for example, right? So they get a separate connection for their work persona, and we're providing a lot of that to customers today. So that's the second way. And then we, just like everybody in the industry, have taken that same fixed 5G connectivity, we've extended it now such that it can support and be another means of backhaul for corporate office or retail store, et cetera, access, along with all the wired solutions that we're all familiar with, right? But in that context, it's still just backhauling Wi-Fi. So to me, what the exciting opportunity here is, and I just wanted to put all this into context, is to supplement that Wi-Fi. I notice I don't say replace, supplement, because I think Wi-Fi is going to be around a long time. Potentially for the right use cases, you supplement Wi-Fi with a private 5G network or a hybrid 5G network, or just frankly, public 5G connectivity, right? But again, replacing how we connect in the office with 5G. And if you look at what's up on the page here right now, what you can start to see, we have now created a model where whether you're mobile, home, or in the workplace, anywhere you are, 5G connectivity is available, and we can now begin to provide that seamless network experience. And I'll talk in a second about just how that really comes to life. And just to complete the picture, by the way, yes, you can also, as a customer, provide your own private 5G. We'll support that as well. And then we wrap it all up. The last piece of this build is the security edge that goes on top to bring it all together. But let me just talk for a second. I want to come back to the private 5G piece. And what are some of the considerations that you should take into account when you think about, hey, is building out 5G to my work locations something I want to consider, because it's not a trivial task to undertake to replace private Wi-Fi with 5G. And here's some of the things to think about. First of all, performance. Look, there is no question 5G scales better than Wi-Fi. Actually, it performs better, and I think most of us agree with that. But in some use cases, it's probably overkill and maybe not cost effective. So there are a lot of use cases where Wi-Fi makes a lot more sense, but there are plenty of use cases, especially if it's mixed indoor and outdoor, where private 5G is going to make a lot more sense. Reliability, I will tell you, say what you want about carriers, but we know how to run, manage, and operate carrier-grade networks. So I would put our management ability of these networks up against any IT shop any day. So if you have mission-critical applications, like we have a Boston Children's Hospital running on a 5G network for us, with us, they've trusted us to say, hey, this is mission-critical data, we want you running it. It creates simplicity, which I talked about earlier. And the last piece of this that I'll talk about under security, which is really cool, and where we're having a seamless flat architecture of a single network like 5G, where it really comes to life, is when an IT team can apply context-sensitive network policies to users. And the example I'll give you here is in that hospital. Imagine the nurse who's using the Epic healthcare application. When they're in the hospital on our 5G network, they get a degree of latency, a better latency, they potentially get better performance, they get their traffic routed directly into their data center, never touching the public internet. But as network slicing evolves in the future, they can then, that same nurse with that same device can walk out of the hospital, and as soon as they get out of that hospital, out of their shift, their phone falls back to a consumer grade slice where they get the same policies every other consumer gets, and they're connected once again directly to the internet and not their data stored. The possibilities of defining network policy are limitless, frankly. And so I would close with a couple takeaways here. I'd say number one, if you're in this business, you probably need to be thinking about private 5G networks and how they apply across all these use cases, mobility, home, and in the workplace. And if you're not thinking about it, your competitors are. So it needs to be on the radar, but it's not for every use case, but it needs to be on the radar. Number two, Wi-Fi still has a big role to play. We have not yet done a 5G private network deployment where we've taken Wi-Fi out. I will tell you that, but we keep Wi-Fi in and it plays a role. Of course, yes, Wi-Fi, non-mission critical applications, even failover to the 5G is another great use case to keep that Wi-Fi in. And then lastly, and this is probably very important, when you're considering the pros and cons or the cost and benefit of building out 5G networks like this, you have to understand the TCO of your current networks. And we find the biggest pitfall we have to getting customers to pull the trigger to putting this in when they see the benefits and want to do it is they don't understand their current costs and therefore can't build an ROI in a new case to go make it happen. So make sure you understand that. And if you do that, I think we all sit here with a great opportunity to redefine how the world connects. Thank you.
All right, raise your hand if you're counting how many types of connectivity you used this morning. I got to 5. So I'd like to introduce